So we would go on to share a little bit of the history of the church that we know of. As we heard, not all of us were here when the church was started. But interestingly, I found the picture of the first serving pastor here, somehow so if you go on to the next slide, the church started in 1965, and 22 members met to form the church. I want to, before I really go on, I want to thank Pastor Tim and Judith Lynn, who provided data and names and times to us to gather this particular information. So Pastor was the one who was the pastor, I believe, in 1967 to 1971 when the church was started, and it is thought, it's a wild guess, I would say, that the church started also at Oldstrasse 9. So based on the little information we have, the church service began or was held then around 11:45, I think, and they would have the Sunday school before then, and they will have the main service afterwards. So the church has grown from 22 members who started the church as members then, and over the years, if you go to the next slide, we'll have many names of pastors who have served. This is in fine print here, but you can get the information later, who have served faithfully over the next 4 decades in stabilizing the church, in serving Christ among the church. And if we go on to the next slide, we have, I would say, let's focus on the last 20 years. So Pastor Dave Pertis was a pastor who served 2 times at IBC Munich. He was, if you hold on there, I would move on after. He went to St. Petersburg, but came again to help rebuild the church because, as Pastor Paul mentioned, the church is made of humans, and we have different challenges from external and from within. But Pastor David Pertis served, and before he left, he brought in Pastor Doug Truax, who served also as a bivocational minister. So he was helping to build that's on the next slide. Pastor Doug Truax was an interim pastor. He served for about a year, helping to build the refugee ministry, but also leading Bible studies in the church. You see a picture of him preaching in the former location and us having some retreats at the zoo area, a picnic there. So after Pastor Doug Truax, we had Pastor Johnson Srigri and Mrs. Srigri, who served. Pastor Johnson had already started also preaching, filling the pulpit, because Pastor Doug Truax was sometimes in the U.S. for business trips, and while there was need for preaching, Pastor Johnson Srigri would come and fill the pulpit until he was appointed a pastor, and he served, I believe, for about a year, and then he moved on from the church, and the church then had another set of interim pastors in the service then. Pastor Johnson helped to also build on the refugee ministry that the church had then. There was lots of refugees who served there, and they did their best in opening their homes to people to have lunch or dinner at their place and ministering Christ unto them. Afterwards, we had the Rains, Dr. Jerry and Sue Ann Rains. They served also just for 3 months, but since 2015, they've kept connection with the church. They've raised support even regularly to bless the church financially. So we want to thank God for them and for their ministry. They also helped to build the church, ministering to the church, getting people's information within the short time. They connected well with the members, and they blessed the church through their service. Before they left, they connected us with another set of interim couple. That's the Robinsons, Pastor Charlie and Janice Robinson. They came twice, so the first time in the first year and then in 2016. October to November 2016, they came again, and the church grew also, especially in discipleship through their service. Also, though they served 10 years ago among us, they have been supporting the church in establishing the discipleship ministry of the church. So they've kept connection with the church since then as well. And after Pastor Robinson left, the church got a full-time pastor, Pastor Scott and Sandy Chadwick. They served, and among other things, they were the ones God used to relocate the church from the old location to this location. So you can see on the picture there, the first service we had here, we were together with another fellowship, Bethel Fellowship, and we had the service here. So God used them to build on the church and to bring us to this place. Before then, the church grew, and we could only meet, I think, 4:30 p.m. or 5 p.m. We would start the service on Sunday evenings because that was the time we had space to use the facility there. But then we found, or God used him to find this place, and then we could start our service earlier again. So before they left, or in their transition, then we got Pastor Chris and Janine Carson, who, among other things, they were used to build the church. They loved the church. He was quite evangelical in his ministry, and they were used to start what we have as life groups. Before, there were maybe Bible study groups out at the pastor's apartment, but there wasn't life groups in diverse homes. But through them, the church started having life groups, and we were empowered to hold ministries also in homes. And later on, they were called to serve as missionaries in Greece, and they left the church. And afterwards, we had the Elvistons. So Pastor John and Lucy Elviston came in August 2019, and they served till April 2020, helped us to get connection to Pastor Paul, and that was when COVID broke out, and Pastor Paul came during COVID. He was used of God to stabilize the church, to get going, to, let's say, digitalize the church, because it was that time when we had to move to Zoom, move to YouTube, and a lot of things were digitalized, if we would say, in addition to building on the legacy that has been before him. So we are grateful, Pastor Paul, for your service and for all God used you to do among us. And after Pastor Paul left in April 2022, we had a time where we didn't have pastors for some time, and we were also in connection or in contact with Pastor Tim Faulkner, and at the right time, we got to invite Pastor David Bird, who came to serve as interim. They would come for 3 months, go for 3 months, and come again. And they were used to build back the church. They were used to love on the church again. And we want to thank God for all of them, for everyone who has served. We had Pastor David Bird come. We had Pastor Chris also visit us again with his wife Jenny. We had Pastor Martin and Annette Jäger, who served as interim pastors for 2 years. Pastor Eddie Lackman, I think it's your 4th time among us, for which we are very grateful for their commitments to the Lord